Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Making Things Happen, the podcast with me, Steve Sims. And today, I've got a doctor, I've got an academic, I've got Cindy McGovern, Dr. Cindy McGovern, with her new book on here. But what I really like about her book on the art of selling, and this is actually her second book, she's a very accomplished author, is that she actually speaks about the difference between trust and rapport, giving up control and understanding why we are all selling. When you get over that and you realize it, you can do it properly. Until that, it's a very disease-ridden word that no one wants to talk about. But learn about the fine art of selling and why you need to actually gravitate towards it, grasp it, and do it properly. Enjoy the show. Hey, Cindy, welcome to the show.
I am so excited to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We're going to talk about a subject that a lot of people kind of like, they hate it. Sales, the word of sales. It's a horrific word, but you actually can like gravitate to it, own it, and actually try to repel the ugliness of it. So first of all, let's attack it. Why are people frightened of the word sales and the whole principle behind selling?
Well, I think that we're afraid of it because we don't want to be sold. And really, when we're sold to, we've given up our power. Someone else was in the power seat pushing us to do something that we didn't want to do. So nobody likes to be sold, but everybody likes to buy. And so my version of selling is not a push, but it's more of an invitation to buy. And I want to change the way people look at sales because, quite frankly, we sell all day, every day. We just don't call it sales.
Yeah. Now, what was your first book?
My first book was called Every Job is a Sales Job. And it's the book that I wish somebody had given me when I was like 18 years old.
Yes. Don't we all wish we had that education? And you've just released your second book, and the name of that book is?
Sell Yourself, How to Create, Live, and Sell a Powerful Personal Brand.
All right, so you are very much owning that concept of selling. Don't be frightened of it. Own it, understand it. So how can we actually take the art of selling from a distaste to a good thing? What are the principles you're teaching us?
So the first thing is to recognize you sell already and you're good at it. And the reason that I know this is because we were all 5 years old at one point, and every 5-year-old on the planet is amazing at sales. If you think about it, they are singularly focused on their goal. They're not afraid of no. They know what they want and they're not afraid to go get it. And so we all have that in us, but somewhere along the way in our lives, we kind of shied away from it in some capacity. We were told no, we were told we needed to have more humility. We didn't deserve that or whatever. I don't think we're doing anybody any favors by not selling who we are and bringing, I call them our superpowers, to the forefront. And that's what we do every day when we're trying to get somebody to buy into an idea, convincing your friends to go for pizza instead of salad. Those are all sales conversations. We just don't call them sales. And so I want people to recognize that it's not a business skill, it's a life skill. They're very good at it, but they should probably do it with a little bit more intention and a little purpose behind it.
When was the tipping point that you realized that selling was actually a skill and a requirement and you should actually own it?
So great question. I was an academic for a long time. I was a college professor, left and went into consulting. And about 6 months into a full-time job, I got put in a sales role. And I thought, I'm going to get fired. I can't sell. I didn't come here to sell. And my boss at the time looked at me and he said, if you learn to sell, it'll change your life. And, you know, my 20-whatever-year-old self rolled my eyes and was like, whatever, guy, like, that's you, not me. And about 6 months into that role, I realized this is something that I had been doing. And I didn't realize what sales was, which is really just helping people get what they need. And my definition was manipulation. It was being sold to, pushy. I had this avatar in my mind. I call him Tommy Two Thumbs, where he's like, hey, what's it going to take to, make the sale? That's not most salespeople at all. It's such a small minority of salespeople on the planet. And so I thought, gosh, if I had that thought process about it, and I have 3 degrees in communication, why wasn't I taught this? I went to good schools. Like, why wasn't I ever taught this? And so that was the tipping point and the catalyst for having to kind of change my mission in life to help people to embrace sales.
Just Correct me. You said you had, was it 3 degrees in the art of communication? And none of those included anything to do with selling?
Nope, not at all. Isn't that shocking?
that is shocking. I want to kind of take a little bit of a twist here and ask you what your opinion is. And you're an academic, you got degrees, on branding and sales. What is the correlation between those two, and are they both necessary?
I do think they're both necessary, and it depends on the kind of branding. If we're talking about company branding, that's more marketing versus sales, brand awareness, things of that nature. You still need to build a relationship with the brand, which is the sales side of it. But when it comes to personal branding, that is all sales, because we don't package ourselves necessarily and sit on the shelf. So it's the interaction we have with other humans. It's the emotional connection we make with others. And they're absolutely intertwined, but we don't think of ourselves as selling ourselves on a daily basis. We think of building relationships. Well, what's a relationship? You sold yourself to someone. Think of a first date. That is nothing but a sales conversation masqueraded as dinner. So I want people to realize they're selling anyways, and I want to be able to help them do it a little bit better.
Now, you said you had a sales job and that you didn't like it because you didn't want to get, what were you first selling?
I was selling consulting services, and I really just thought I was going to get fired, Steve, because I thought I had to sell that fast, slick, joking. And what's funny is, decades later, people will ask, well, how do you do it? You don't go out and play golf and you don't drink whiskey. And I'm like, no, I don't. But somehow I've been able to have a couple decades in sales. But I think it's about being curious. I think it's about my natural ability to be curious and my desire to help other people. And I think a lot of people have that. And they don't realize that you can sell using curiosity and just the desire to help others.
How do you think it's changed over the years? Because we've been through some very strange periods, the strangest none of us have ever recognized before. But, we're in a period, if we look at the last 5 years and probably going into the next couple, we've got a pandemic, a recession, and an adjustment, a political upheaval, a fake news concept, mass conversations, protests and riots. We're in a very distracting period of time. How's that affecting the way we sell?
So great question. And that's actually why I wrote this book, because of all the things that have happened in the last few years. I saw us go through the Great Resignation, the Great Remorse, the Great Reset. I think we're in what I'm calling the Great Rebranding, because I think we're readjusting to the world that we live in. We're readjusting to how we interact with other humans. I mean, thinking about like the first time we came out of this pandemic bubbles and had to be around humans again, and how awkward it was for most of us. And I'm a people person. I love to hug people. And it was like, do we hug? Do we bump elbows? Like, how do you do this? And so I think we're rebranding who we are in sort of this changing environment. And I think that it's going to continue to evolve. And I think that that is really what brought me to write this book now. And that's what helped the publisher fast tracked it. I wrote it within a year because we really wanted to get this message out to help people. Where can people get it? Let's jump in on that one quick before we carry on. Literally everywhere books are sold, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any independent bookseller, and then on my website at sellyourselfbook.com.
Sellyourselfbook.com. All right, those links will be underneath. All right, so to continue, how do you feel as though the bot society is affecting our ability to sell? Because I know personally, I tried to have a conversation with T-Mobile this morning, and I got some bot asking me the same 10 questions, and it irritates me. And you want to get through to a person, but by the time you do, you're actually aggravated. And that doesn't help within the sales process. No, it doesn't. And it's funny that you bring this up, because I think the more we go into embracing and leaning into technology and AI and the bots and all of this stuff, we have to realize that a human programmed it at some capacity, right? So it started with a human being somewhere, but it's meant to be a filter. And that's really what a bot is. It's a filter to try to help you get to the right person, but it is a frustrating situation. It's almost like if we went back 15 years to the phone screening system. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 17 for this.
And it's the same thing. So what I would encourage anyone that's using this in their business, or, as you're building out your customer service platforms as a business, is that the experience you want to be giving people, because you're selling them the fact that their time is not as valuable as yours by forcing them to go through that. And I'm with you, Steve. Like, I get so aggravated. It's like, I already said this. I already answered this. And I feel like they're asking me the same 4 questions over and over again. But it's recognizing what they're selling in that moment, which is aggravation, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, bottom line of it is they're all monkey learning, and the process of AI is developing. And as Peter Diamandis says, within the next 5 years, they're going to be able to think and respond faster than a human. So they're actually learning. So all of your aggravation, and every now and then when you respond with swear and stuff, they're learning all of this stuff. All right, so what are the common mistakes? Let's get down to some tactics for some people. What are the tactics of a good salesperson?
So the good salesperson follows what I consider 5 steps of a formula. And the first one is having a really solid plan. And this is even, Steve, where seasoned sales professionals fall down, because they have a goal, but a goal is not a plan. A plan is an actionable list of steps to follow and helping you to get closer or further away. And it's a living, breathing thing. It's not like I put the plan into place and that's it, right? So you know this, I know this, but it is funny when people start to think about a sales plan, and I'll ask them, even our coaching clients, I'm like, well, tell me about your sales plan. And they'll rattle off 2 or 3 goals. And I'm like, okay, so that's like saying we're going to take a road trip and we're going to drive to LA. Okay. That's not a plan. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to stop? What roads are we going to take? What method are we going to get there? So that's the first thing, is having a really good plan in place, because it fuels the rest of the process, which step 2 is having a really good opportunity in front of you and being able to see those. And that's really where the magic happens, is finding that sort of opportunity meets preparation. And we've all heard it before, but if you don't have that plan in place, you don't even know what to look for. So you've got to have that, because when that opportunity presents itself, the whole point of that is to establish trust. No sale happens without trust. We all know that. But if you don't see the opportunity for what it is and have prepared your opportunity taking moment of what you're going to say, it's going to pass you by. And then that wouldn't avail you to step 4, which is asking. Ask for what you want. And I really believe you have to ask for what you want, take what you can get. And then, of course, the final step is following up with gratitude.
Now, you said about no one buys without trust. Doesn't that feed back into, again, establishing your personal brand? Do you have a reputation, and that reputation is established by you focusing on what your brand says about you?
100%. And what I would tell people is recognize that you've got a brand, whether you realize it or not. And everybody knows it but you, if you haven't been mindful of it. So you're either building trust or you're building distrust. There's no middle ground. So when you think about that and you've done something that's out of character, that's because that built distrust. And so we're doing one or the other all day, every day. We just don't necessarily think of it in that capacity.
So if we're in a planet that's highly aggravated at the moment, we've got a short fuse, we're dealing with bots that are pissing us off, how can we, because you mentioned earlier about the plan and the differentiator between a plan and a goal. Really like that explanation, by the way. The trouble when you say a plan is any skeptical, cynical person listening to this is going to go, that's that funnel thing where you kind of start leading me down to, getting 3 yeses before the big yes and stuff. How do we get over people getting into that, you're not going to sell me kind of mentality?
So there is a funnel and it already exists. So whether we lean into it or not, it's there. And it's just what I would encourage people to recognize is, even if let's say that you're doing a job search, you're sending out a number of resumes, you're doing a number of interviews to get to the point where you get a job offer, you weigh the offers and you make a choice. That's a funnel. So whether you controlled it or not, it happened. The same thing when we're selling ourselves, when we're creating relationships. Going back to the dating example, you didn't go on one date and then magically fall in love. You probably went on a number of dates. That's a funnel. So I'm not saying that you have to sit there and be a mathematician and calculate every aspect of your life, but recognize there are patterns in the chaos. And if you know what they are, you can have a little bit more control over your destiny and maybe do what the salespeople call shorten the sales cycle to get closer to your goal faster if you know what the math looks like.
Isn't that what it always comes down to, this element of control? And I've been in sales jobs, I'm in sales jobs, we understand sales, depending on the kind of personality. And again, that's another thing, recognizing the personality of the person you're dealing with tells you how you're supposed to handle that conversation. But it does come down to, I think, two things. And I'm very open to hear your opinion on it. You're the one with the degrees. Trust and control. And if they don't trust you, nothing's happening. But then there's all this kind of like, well, you're not going to sell me because I'm in control. And then there's that stubbornness and they refuse to accept the opportunity. So does it come down to those two elements, the trust and the control?
Always. Every sale comes down to that. And I couldn't agree with you more, because if I feel like you've taken away my power and my control, I'm going to dig in my heels. I don't want to be sold to. I want it to be my decision. So, a seasoned sales professional is going to guide you to the answer that they want you to get to, but it's not with manipulation. It should be with building trust. It should be with, hey, I'm going to walk away if this isn't a fit for you because you're in control. And what's funny is, and I teach sales, I consult in sales, I am a salesperson too, but what's humorous to me is the walk away. Right? So I'll do this. In fact, I did it last week where we had somebody that wanted to hire our consulting services and it wasn't a good fit. And I was honest with them. They got a little bit upset because I took their control away. And I said, I'm not taking away your choice, but I'm telling you that this is not a good use of your time or money right now. What I was doing was building trust. And so I was keeping them in control. They still had the power, but I was trying to get them to recognize that it was better to trust me and trust my expertise versus throwing their money at a problem that really that dog was not going to hunt. So
yeah, I like that. I also like the way that you're leading someone to the revelation. You're trying to get them to understand the opportunity you can see that's going to allow them to make the decision. A lot of people that have that control and are frightened of losing that control, sometimes they're talking to a bad salesperson that doesn't understand how to make the sale. A salesperson is to introduce you to the water and allow you the choice as to whether or not you drink or not. So in essence, if a good salesman does a good job, you're the one in control. You're the one making the decision that that's what you want to do. That's just basically assisting you.
It's so true. It's so true. And this is where even seasoned sales professionals, I think, get it wrong, is when they try to control the conversation too much. You guide the conversation. I teach you to guide the conversation. But the other person has to feel in control, and you have to build that trust with them. And people confuse rapport and trust. Rapport is, I like you. I'll go have a beer with you or a cup of coffee with you. Trust is, I can get you to talk and tell me what you're afraid of and tell me your challenges so that I can find out if I even have a solution for you. They're very different things, and they're very often confused.
That's beautiful. Now, I've seen this time and time again, and you just put it in a far better way than me. The difference between trust and rapport. Rapport is your buddies, your mates that you'll go and get drunk with and play around and have fun. But you won't tell them where you're vulnerable. You won't tell them where the bodies are buried. You're not going to reveal any secrets. So it's very good. So anyone listening to this, I really want you to understand and ask yourself, do you have great rapport with your client bank, or do you have great trust? That's a great analyzer. And now that's a great revelation as well, because I'm wondering how many of them are going, well, I really get on with Bobby, but he doesn't tell me anything I want to know. So that's a great one. That one's in there. How do you think sales has changed from, say, I don't know, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2020s? How do you feel as though they've changed? Because our attention span has changed, our frustration, our access, and this is the worst thing, our access to, and this is in air quotes for anyone that can't see this, knowledge has increased. Because let's be serious, the internet has produced a lot of dumb people because they now look at this stuff and they go, well, I know everything now. You can't sell me because I know all the specs. And they're looking at the wrong freaking sheet. So how do you think things have changed? And what do you think we need to plan for maybe the next 5?
So you said an operative word that I want to underscore, which is how do we plan? It's all about planning differently because we have to recognize that the world has shifted and the consumer or the customer, potential customer, does have different knowledge base where, wink, wink, nudge, nudge on knowledge. I agree with you. But it's very funny. I have a friend who's a doctor and she has a mug that says, my medical degree is smarter than your Google. And it kind of makes me laugh, but it's true because think about the first thing we do if you have an ailment is you go to the internet and you self-diagnose. And it's like, that's the worst thing you could do. You end up, it's like, oh my God, I have 19 diseases in 30 minutes that you found for yourself. Yeah. But we have to recognize that part of our plan as salespeople is knowing what knowledge is floating around out there and being ready to have a discussion around it, directly to it, or teach against it. And that's the hard part is if you don't have a plan for that, you're going to go in to make a sale and they're going to be like, oh, I already know how to do that. Oh, we already did this. I watched a YouTube video. And it's like, great. So making sure they know.
How do we change it? What do you see? Look, you're a planner. You're an academic. You're a planner. So you're very analytically minded. What do you see coming at us that we need to be prepared for?
So great question. So what I think that we need to be prepared for is the power is with the consumer and with the employee now. And whether we recognize it or not, that they may not give up control, they may not be willing to give up or combat the fact that our knowledge is better, that our medical degree is better than their Google or whatever, and sell against it. So it's just like if you're selling yourself, if you're selling your personal brand, you're selling against a ghost of your past. Let's say you've changed careers or you've pivoted. There's always that sort of narrative that's out there that you have to sell against. And so you have to be ready to change the narrative and be ready to defend your new narrative as well. So whether you're selling your business or you're selling yourself or you're selling a product or a service, you're selling against whatever the story is on the street. You better know what the story is and you better have some awareness around that so that you can sell against it. And I think we have to be prepared for that.
Oh, I like that. All right. Remind us again, where can we get this book?
You can get this book everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, your local bookseller, and at sellyourselfbook.com.
All right, we look forward to Cindy, thank you so much for being on. This has been interesting. I really love it. And I've got to admit, I'm going to underscore the trust versus rapport. That was a highlight for me. So thank you very much, Cindy. We wish you all the best with the book launch out there. And more importantly, we wish all the best for everyone reading it to get the unfair advantage of Cindy's providing you. Cindy, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great fun.
Bye for now. Hey, I hope you liked that episode of the Art of Making Things Happen podcast. And remember, these are done for you. If you like them, subscribe, share them around. But if you don't like them, send me an email to ask@steveDsims.com and you can tell me what I need to do to make this the most dynamic podcast you listen to. Anyway, make sure whatever you learned from the last podcast, you actually do something with. Without action, it's just a bunch of people blowing air. Have a good time. Until next time. Bye.